make about 45 million pounds of chips in a quarter. That equates to about 200 million pounds of potatoes, which is quite a few. What's interesting with M&T is they're a small town bank, and as we've grown, they've also grown with us. They've got the resources that you would need in order to go big, but they also have that friendly local community feel so that it makes it seem easier than it probably is.
Hello, and welcome to Candidates Up Front. I'm Judith Cranus, a member of the League of Women Voters. On June 2nd, our primary election is coming up. This is the election in which the Democrats and the Republicans choose their candidates. And you must be registered to vote as a Democrat or a Republican to choose your party's candidate. However, everyone, no matter your party or lack of party, every registered voter may vote on ballot questions. And there are 5 of them this year in the city of Reading. This year, Berks Community Television and the League of Women Voters of Berks County have joined forces to provide you with interviews of all candidates in contested races, and we provide information on the ballot questions. There are contested races this spring in the 9th Congressional District for the Democratic Party and in the 127th Pennsylvania House of Representatives District for both the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. In each district, the candidates all will get the same questions and will have the same amount of time to answer each one. We have done this so you can compare them. Please note, if you are not yet registered, you have until May 18th to do so. If you need more information on registering or voting, visit elections@countyofberks.com. That's elections@countyofberks.com. Or you can phone our Berks County Department of Election Services at 610-478-6490. And this year, you can vote by mail-in ballot. That application is available on the same website or through the same phone number. Please note that the opinions expressed in this interview are those of the candidate and not necessarily those of the League of Women Voters or Berks Community TV. Our interviewee in this program is running in the Democratic contest for the 127th Pennsylvania House District. That district includes most of the city of Reading and Penhorst. So we are ready for our interview. And in this program, we will be talking with Democrat Robin Kostenbader Jacobson. She has 4 opponents: Cesar Cepeda, Robert Melendez, Manny Guzman, and Raymond Baker. So welcome, Ms. Kostenbader Jacobson. Nice to have you with us today.
Thank you, Judith. Hello, hola.
And we want to know, I think the first thing voters want to know is why you want to be a state representative and what are your qualifications for this position? And we'll try to do that in a minute.
Okay, I'll try to talk quickly. Some of the just a few of the reasons I'm running for state rep are in Reading, we have 70% poverty. We must eradicate our poverty here. We have to move forward in the revitalization and redevelopment of Reading. We have to secure additional funding for our public schools to educate our children and not just by zip code. We have to support workforce development to create jobs for those with and without college degrees. In poverty, we have to address the homelessness issue that disproportionately affects single moms, children, and unaccompanied minors. We have to work together to reduce gun violence in our community, our state, and our nation so that our children can live safely. And we have to create additional resources for the treatment of mental health issues. I am a product of the city. I've lived here 10 generations of my family, I'm proud to say, and I want to represent all the people of the 127.
Thank you. What should voters know about this office? How is it important to them?
Again, it's putting somebody in a leadership position that they are able to get responsiveness from, that they can confide in and talk to and make their issues known. It's important because we're talking about funding. We're talking about what it takes to educate our children well so that they can advance and be successful in the education system that we're able to provide and able to pay for. Again, it's about working together, looking at home ownership, looking at how our taxes are being spent, and making things available and user-friendly for the constituents of our district in the 127. And it is a crossover between Ken Horst as well as most of the city of Reading. So whatever happens in the city of Reading, I believe affects all of the county of Berks.
Thank you. What are the 3 most important things you want to accomplish as a state representative? And we'll give you 90 seconds for this.
Okay. Well, I mentioned a couple of them up front in my introducing myself to everyone, but some of the issues that I think we really need to also be on top of are when I look at, for example, the major problems that are facing the Commonwealth. It's a loss of manufacturing, industry, and business. And now with COVID-19 in the mix, we're looking at an even more traumatic situation in all levels of our lives. We need to be able to attract developers and business and doctors to locate here. We're experiencing, and we have been for decades, urban decay, the homelessness, the blighted properties, the lack of funding and programs for property improvements, the lack of housing for seniors. We're looking at across the state and the nation, the opioid crisis. We're looking at students who are going to school and don't have a place to put their head at night because they're homeless. They're not living at home. They're living with friends, or again, perhaps they're living on the streets. We have a need to look at more money, more grants coming in. Again, goes back to education. I didn't share earlier, based on timing, that I am the current president. I'm 2-term director of the Reading School Board. This is my 6th year. And certainly looking at what our students need and how we have such disproportionate funding.
Thank you. Should the state make healthcare accessible and affordable to all Pennsylvanians? And if so, how would you do this? That's another 90-second question.
Okay. Absolutely, healthcare should be available to everyone. And the ongoing problem and battle is who pays for that. I think we need to continue to look at the processes and the best practices around us, what works, how does the individual contribute and in what ways. We have to look at sliding scales. We have to know that if we don't have a healthy community, we don't have a healthy state. If things are at a poverty level, we can't succeed, we can't move forward, we can't look at a healthy future. I would certainly want to lobby and look at the bills that are out there currently, and certainly this is also a national issue, and we know that that is being threatened and looked at again with our current administration at the national level. So there are many things that have already been on the books, have already been looked at, and certainly we need to revisit and reevaluate.
Thank you. Berks County currently has no county health department. Do we need one? And is this something that should be mandated and paid for by state government?
Again, I will admit I don't know the mandates from the state that require or don't require that based on population or demographics.
There's no requirement at the state.
Okay, thank you. So I think it's something our commissioners have to look at. I will address my confidence in how they've handled the coronavirus. They certainly communicated. They did media conferences. They created a hotline, a place where people could call in and speak to someone, whether in English or Spanish. And I will say that even at the state level, That didn't exist because I know that one of my issues advisors had called in the beginning when things were starting to be shut down throughout the state, and there was not one outgoing message or information in Spanish. And I made it a point to call our Senator Judith Schwank, and I see that that has been changed because, again, we have to communicate when it comes to health and priorities to all of our constituents.
Thank you. Now, following the census, our state legislators will redraw the district line for state and federal officials. This has led to gerrymandering, districts that favor one party. Do you think this is fair to voters? And if not, what will you do to give the voters fair districts?
Well, it's interesting. That was also related to a question that was put forth by the League of Women Voters at the state level. And I do have notes on that I want to address, if that's okay. Because
Sure.
I think we can all find, and there are precedent cases in states where this has taken place, where gerrymandering has occurred and it hasn't been helpful to us as constituents or to us as voters. So what I have already gone on record as saying, if I may share that, I believe that we have to put commissions in charge of redistricting so that we can significantly reduce many of the worst abuses that are taking place or associated with redistricting. We need to improve outcomes and satisfaction across the stakeholder spectrum, but only if the commissions are carefully designed and structured to promote independence and incentivize discussion and compromise. Members on a commission have to represent all factions equally, and I've created and have sent in, as I said, to the League of Women Voters at the state level, my suggestion of how the commission should be created. But certainly as voters, we need to vote on that, and we need to start taking back our rights to how we are being presented candidates.
Thank you. Will you support raising the minimum wage, and what should the minimum wage be?
I've been approached and have had a number of conversations with some of our constituents in the 127th, because this is certainly a hot spot or a hot item to many of our voters and people trying to make it from paycheck to paycheck, if they even have a paycheck. I believe absolutely in raising the minimum wage. And again, I've gone on record. It seems that $15 an hour is what people, unions are looking at and recommending. So certainly I'm in favor of that. You know, I teach and I work with a lot of people who have been in the workplace and they're going back to school because they want to make a difference. They want a career. They don't just want a job. And what I see for them is this struggle to get ahead because they're working 2 or 3 part-time jobs at the current minimum wage, and they might have several children and they have commitments in their work life, and it stops them or inhibits them from continuing their education. So we need to be able to help people make it from week to week in their families.
Thank you. We're going to have to cut our timing to about 60 seconds a question to make sure we get through all the questions.
Okay.
So the next one is on our safety net programs, things like food assistance, housing assistance, evidence-proven addiction treatment. So the first part of the question is, are these adequate in Pennsylvania? And if not, how would you change them? And then we're going to ask, should there be work requirements to get those benefits? And should you have to be a citizen to get those safety net services?
A citizen of what? The United States?
The United States, yeah.
Well, I believe that if you are here at this point in the United States, I'll start backwards, that you are more than likely qualified to be here because of what we've all experienced in immigration with our national government. So if you are here and you've remained here, yes, I believe that you are entitled to these things. Uh, in Pennsylvania, the services that we have, I will say that certainly for local area going through COVID-19, we've seen how people have pulled together that these services have been made available. I believe to date with just the Reading School District students, we have served over 148,000 meals to our students. And the big question is for me and should be for all of us, how will we continue to fund some of these with the cutbacks that we're already hearing about because of COVID-19? I believe COVID-19 is changing the face of everything for us. And we have to be cognizant of that moving forward.
What is your plan to facilitate and encourage successful completion of a high school diploma by children in challenged communities to ensure they're equipped to gain employment in today's high-tech environment?
Well, that's a great question, and it's something certainly we've been dealing with at the Reading School Board, and I believe that it has certainly come to existence with many, many districts. So when we're looking at that, we are looking at a lot of differences. We're looking at the fact that the Reading School District, we have, I believe, 82% Latino students. We have around 24% of students who are English learners, language learners. So we already know are identified at, as I said earlier, 70% poverty. And so we're looking at a situation of creating less of a digital divide. That's been a divide for us prior to COVID. Certainly we've been putting Chromebooks in every student's hand from K up through 12th grade. And we're trying to eradicate that digital divide, but then it comes down to what does someone have available when it comes to their internet service and capability to tap in. We've created a lot of programs at the high school level to keep students from dropping out. We have the Red Knight Academy that's been very, very successful. And obviously, Judith, I could go on this subject, but the stop sign has been up a while, and I apologize.
Yeah, we do want to get in all the questions. So there are currently inequities in the way we fund our public schools. Schools in rich zip codes thrive, schools in poor zip codes struggle. What will you do to provide every child a quality education?
Well, it seems like the more students also that are in a district, the more difficult it gets with funding, and it becomes more and more of a gap. So a couple of the things that concerned us, or some of us anyway, and I've talked to our CFO about this, is we live in an area of poverty. We don't want to tax our homeowners out of existence living in the city. So it's really about looking at what the structure is. You know, we're looking at what the governor put forth in his budget, and it's generous, but again, it's not enough to go around. It's not enough to make us whole. We need to be able to find ways to offset, ways to collect taxes. And when the legislature recently was voting on whether or not we should have the right to raise taxes or not, that becomes a real problem as well.
We'll have to go on to our next question. Many local legislators favor doing away with the property tax to fund public schools. How would you fund our public schools?
Again, this has been looked at and looked at, and I have sitting by me an article going back in the Reading Eagle to November of last year, 2019, when the legislators were talking about it, again, prior to COVID hitting us hard. But this has been going on for years. There was a plan in place and being touted and looked at closely, where we would tax things that were purchased, like diapers, like things that you would buy in the corner bodega or at a grocery store. The problem for a district like, excuse me, the 127th, to those people or those constituents, is they're getting hit anyway. They're getting hit when they have to go and buy diapers, or they have to buy things that a tax has been added to. So I think, again, we need to go back to the drawing board. I don't have
Okay, I'm going to
a
stop you so we can go on to the next
quick
text question.
solution.
Yeah, people never like taxes, but they are necessary. In this time of increasing disparity between the incomes of the well-to-do and the poor, is a flat income tax, as we have in Pennsylvania, still appropriate? And well, let's just take 30 seconds on that one so we can catch up on our time.
Okay. I would like to look at the difference it would make not having the flat income tax, and what difference that would make for a district like the or the legislative district of the 127th.
Thank you.
It may have outlived itself.
Pennsylvania has a lot of crumbling infrastructure. How would you as a legislator address that problem? And let's just try 45 seconds.
Can you please explain what you mean by crumbling infrastructure? In what ways?
Bridges and roads and things that haven't had the repairs that we need to be putting into them.
Well, again, we have seen some of that occurring with our own bridges right here in the city of Reading and going out into the county. So we've seen repairs, monies have been made available. Again, facing COVID-19 and how it has just dismantled so many programs and so much money. I don't know what we're going to do where that's concerned. Again, these are things that are going to take somebody with experience and leadership to sit down and really look at, and people pushing the numbers around about what is absolutely necessary at this point. That's what we've been doing at the Reading School District. As people know, we have very, very old buildings. So we've had to prioritize in renovations and remodeling based on safety issues.
Okay, we've got less than 5 minutes left and we've got about 6 questions. So we're going to go quickly here. What should the state do, or should the state do more to keep the planet habitable? So we're looking at what for the planet to be good, what should be the state doing more? And let's just do 45 seconds.
Okay, so the state needs to be looking at special interest groups and why we're doing certain things we are to gain resources, and make the priority quality of living, quality of life, quality of being able to breathe fresh, clean air.
Okay. Should Pennsylvania decrease the use of fossil fuels and carbon emissions?
Well, that relates to what I just answered in the last question.
That'll help us move along then. Should the state charge the fracking industry to repair the damages caused by fracking? And if so, what fees should be charged and how should the funds be dispersed?
I believe that they should be charged. They're fracking, they are creating what they leave behind. And just as if UGI comes out and tears up the street to put the meters in, they have the responsibility of patching up the streets and clearing up the situation that they created.
Thank you. What do you think are common sense gun violence controls the state should have in place?
Well, there could be a litany of those. I think foremost, there needs to be, I'm not going to say that people and guns, people shouldn't exist not having guns, but I will say that we need to have stringent guidelines and they need to be followed. We need to be doing accurate background checks. We need to be making sure someone is of age, and I'm not opposed to someone being required to take a shooting or training course.
Thank you. Discrimination in housing and employment against LGBTQ people is still legal in Pennsylvania. Should we have laws to stop this discrimination?
Absolutely. Some of my best friends and family members are members of the LGBTQ plus community. And I feel very strongly about a lack, not having discrimination. And when people say, well, you know, things have changed over the years, not when we continue to discriminate. That eradicates everything that we've fought for and have changed in equality and equity.
Okay, well, I appreciate your hurrying up in your answers so we have a little more time. That gives you about a minute to make a closing statement.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank the League of Women Voters, BCTV, and certainly you, Judith, for taking your time as a member of the League. I always enjoy seeing you and talking with you, so thank you very much. I want to say to the voters of the 127th that, like you, I've been greatly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic that's plagued our nation, our Commonwealth, and our everyday lives. Now, more than ever, we need to elect candidates who are prepared to take leadership roles. I am a leader, and I'm ready to represent and fight for you. As a community advocate my entire life and as the president of the Reading School Board, I know how to build coalitions. I know how to help people to get things done. And I am asking for your vote on primary election day on June 2nd. So again, I thank everybody. I look forward to election day and again, asking for those votes so that I can make a difference to represent everybody in the 127th.
Thank you, Ms. Kostenbader-Jacobson, for sharing your message with our BCTV viewers. And before we close, I need to remind our viewers that there are 4 other candidates in the race: Robert Melendez, Cesar Cepeda, Raymond Baker, and Manny Guzman. And I encourage you to watch their interviews so you are fully informed when you vote. Thank you for watching Candidates Up Front. These programs are brought to you in the public interest by Berks Community Television and the League of Women Voters in Berks County, and sponsored by M&T Bank. I'm Judith Cranes. Good day.
We make about 45 million pounds of chips in a quarter. That equates to about 200 million pounds of potatoes, which is quite a few. What's interesting with M&T is they're a small town bank, and as we've grown, they've also grown with us. They've got the resources that you would need in order to go big, but they also have that friendly local community feel so that it makes it seem easier than it probably is.